I sold the last of this Mom's Kitchen trivet out of my retail store a day or two ago, and if something sells, generally speaking, I'll make it again, unless it was a pain in the neck and it was no fun. But this one was not too bad. So Mom's Kitchen is a trivet, and it's from Steve Good. So let's move over to the scroll saw. I decided to make 3 of these, and we'll make 2 by stack cutting. This is an excellent way to make 2, or more if they're thinner, of an item at the same time. It cuts your labor time in half and improves your productivity. It's not practical for all designs, but it should work well on this project. For securing the 2 pieces together, I opted for a practical and reliable method, 2 strips of double-sided tape. To attach the pattern, I used a piece of scroll saw tape on the top. This is my preferred method, and I find it to be most effective among the various ways to attach patterns to wood. If you're curious about this and the other methods, I've included a link to a video where I discuss them in more detail. I already had a numbered 9 Pegasus modified geometry blade in the saw from our previous project, and that would have been the blade I would have chosen for this project anyway. I'll also leave a link to my video on choosing the correct size blade for each project. I use a lighted magnifier when cutting on the scroll saw, but I leave the light off when recording video because it tends to wash out the picture. This is an accessory you should seriously consider purchasing if you plan on spending a lot of time scroll sawing. It is a great help for following the pattern lines, particularly on complex items with lots of small cuts. The letters on this pattern are more curved than on some, and they should be easy to cut even for a beginner. You want to cut from the pilot hole to the nearest corner, then back off the blade almost imperceptibly, just enough so it is no longer cutting. The curve the blade is created will not give you enough room to pivot the workpiece to the next direction you need to cut. Once the wood is facing that direction, you can start feeding it into the blade again. After you complete the cut all the way around the letter, chances are the blade will pick up the waste piece and toss it out the top. If not, you can push or pull it out yourself. This step also illustrates why a foot switch is another good accessory for the scroll saw. When you've finished an inside cut, you take your foot off the switch and the blade stops immediately. This allows you to safely remove the waste, then loosen the blade, remove it from the interior, thread it through the next pilot hole, then start the process over again. Without a foot switch, you have to turn the motor on and off by hand. You will need to exercise extra caution while cutting out the letter O. It is made with 2 cuts to prevent the center section from falling out. If you notice how close together those little tabs holding in the middle are, you'll see why I urge extra attention to detail here. I usually cut right on the line for the majority of patterns, but for those with letters or with other details close together where there's a danger of breakage, I cut on the inside of the lines. This gives you a bit of extra material and lessens the possibility of a catastrophic break. It's a horrible feeling when you've spent an hour cutting a project and a cut that goes too far over the line causes a break that ruins the workpiece. The scroll saw is nowhere as noisy as a lot of the other shop tools, especially the table saw and thickness planer, but the sound can be irritating and hearing loss is cumulative, so you should do whatever you can to prevent it from even starting. I like to use a set of noise-canceling headphones with a Bluetooth connection while I'm working in the shop. Of course, you'll defeat the purpose of noise cancellation if the volume is turned up too high for the music you're listening to. The other safety steps you should be using in the shop are safety glasses and a dust mask. I wear glasses anyway, so that precaution is easy for me to follow. The scroll saw kicks up some very fine dust particles, which is evident to me by how dusty my glasses are at the end of a shop session. A dust mask keeps those particles out of my lungs and will do the same for you. It doesn't matter what order you make these cuts in, but I almost always start at the top and work my way from left to right, then down to the next set of cuts. Most of the time I make the cut in the clockwise direction as well. One thing you should always know when cutting is how easily the scrap pieces can be removed. On this project, quite a few of the letters popped right out of the top when the cut was finished. Those that didn't easily fell out of the bottom. Easily removable scrap is an indication that the blade is set at a perfect 90 degrees to the table, and that you are making your cuts with proper blade tension. If a waste piece can only be removed by pushing it out the top or bottom, but not both, this is an indication that the blade is not squared at the table, it is not tensioned properly, or you are putting too much pressure on the blade as you cut and it is flexing. Doing this can also cause the blade to overheat and start burning the wood, or it can cause the blade to break while you're cutting. You should be performing regular checks to ensure you're getting square cuts and make corrections if you are not. With experience, you'll also be able to feel when the blade is getting dull and know when to replace it. The dull blade not only cuts more slowly, it is also likely to overheat and start burning the wood. Scroll saw blades are relatively inexpensive, so get in the habit of tossing and replacing them before they break. Even with hundreds of hours of experience cutting on the scroll saw, I still make occasional mistakes. I slowed the video down considerably so you can see what happened just as I started cutting the last letter. The blade slipped out of the lower blade holder, which startled me. This is one of the places where a foot switch comes in handy. The tensioning lever on the upper blade holder automatically comes loose if the blade breaks or comes out of the lower blade holder as it did here. Sometimes this ends up bending the blade and it has to be tossed away. In this case, the blade was still usable, so I just had to remount and retighten it. With all the inside cuts completed, it was time to move on to that one long set of scalloped edges on the outside of the trivet. I started at a place that was close to the edge of the wood for the first cut, going from the edge to the point between two curves. When I reached that point, I backed the blade up slightly into the curve I had just created. This gave me enough room to pivot the workpiece to the next direction I needed to cut, and I started pushing the wood into the blade again. I didn't count them, but there are a lot of half circles on the perimeter of this circular trivet. Once you've developed the feel for this maneuver, it's a matter of repeating it around the circle. This would be a good beginner's project to develop the skills you need for scroll saw projects. This project is all in one piece, so once I completed the outside cut, I removed the pattern by peeling off the scroll saw tape, which easily came off in one piece. Then I found a small gap between the two pieces held together with the double-sided tape. I had to wedge a small screwdriver into that gap, then twist it to break the tape's grip. The Pegasus modified geometry blade left a smooth bottom on the cuts, so I just needed to use a random orbit sander with 150, then 220 grit sandpaper to prepare the pieces for finishing. I used a warm set polyurethane spray for that last step. There you have the finished Mom's Kitchen trivet. It was not a difficult project, and I think a beginner could make it easily. Let me know what you think of the project. Do you want to make one or more yourself? Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. If you're in the mood to watch another woodworking project, a suggestion for the next video to watch is on your screen right now.